So what we have here today is a very interesting air cooler. It is the ALSEYE W700 Pro. It's a dual tower air cooler, and to make the long video short, maganda yung performance niya.
Sawa ka na ba sa unactivated Windows mo? Well, lucky you! Pinakabago mula sa cdkeyoffer.com. Windows 10 and Windows 11 activation codes. Legit, safe, at pinakamura. Madali lang umorder. Hanapin ang Windows version na gusto mo. Piliin ang preferred payment method. Wala pang 5 minutes, nag-CDK ka na para sa Windows mo. Marami na kaming natulungan.
Dati, sudden depressed ako. But now, I found the love of my life.
Dati, aimless and walang purpose ang life ko. But now, I'm a world-class Zumba instructor.
So, web developer ako and content creator for a YouTube channel. And ngayon, ganun pa rin ako pero activated na yung Windows ko.
Kaya kung naghahanap ka ng legit, mura, at original software,
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Kung talagang performance lang yung habol mo and you don't care about anything else, this is a really performant cooler. However, that performance comes with a number of caveats which we're going to be talking about today. So here we go. So we'll check the specs first. It's a 160mm dual tower air cooler. It comes with 2 fans, 7 heat pipes at 6mm each. And yung fans na kasama niya, it can go up to 3,000 RPM. It supports a plethora of Intel platforms as well as AM4 and AM5 for AMD. So it has a lot of interesting features. So pag nakita mo siya, yun unang agad mong mapapansin. And number 1 is yung parang light niya sa harap. And you might be thinking that's just an RGB gimmick. And basically, tama ka dun. It's an RGB gimmick. Pero medyo special siya kasi pwede mo siyang iset so that it listens to yung outside noise or like music. And then it would act like an audio visualizer. So why would you want that? We do not know. Pero, you know, it's good that it's there and it's good that it's unique. Another unique feature of it are the fans themselves. They're just 120mm fans. However, they do come in this weird and non-standard mounting and housing. And basically, they have clasps instead of those simple wire things na we find in most coolers and most fans. Mas elaborate yung mounting mechanism niya, basically. Yung design ng fans, they're not RGB. And basically, they look unique kasi nga dun sa medyo weird na mechanism niya. And speaking about those fans, yung fans niya at maximum RPM, sobrang ingay. Well, hindi ko naman masasabing sobrang ingay kasi we still don't have a sound meter here. But it kind of crosses that threshold where it's annoying and it's hard to ignore. So siguro kung meron kang noise cancelling headphones, that would be fine. But anytime that your CPU is pegged at 100%, you're going to hear the fans. Overall, the build quality is solid. We've had a lot of air coolers here, ranging from budget to high-end ones. And comparing just the build of the heatsink itself, it's very solid, it's very hard. It doesn't have a lot of flex. And it just feels solid. Plus, yun nga, meron siyang 7 na heat pipes. So, talagang okay yung performance niya. And speaking of the fan, sadly, I can't say the same in terms of the solid quality or build quality. It has a unique housing. However, the clamps and the connections for it seem kind of flimsy. And medyo nagninitpick ako. And hindi naman siya super flimsy. However, I do have the impression that inexperienced PC builders may have the potential to break the clasps due to the combination of the mechanism itself as well as the build quality. And medyo nakakainis kasi with that casing, with that design, it's a bit proprietary. So if you end up breaking the hinge or the clasp, hindi mo na magagamit yung fan. We've been seeing some unique technologies in terms of the fans, like yung sa Freezer 36, yung sa Assassin 4 and Assassin 4S. However, comparing those fan designs, I can say na itong ALSEYE yung worst. Just because of that mechanism talaga. I'm not a fan of that mechanism. Unlike in the Freezer 36 fans, it's mounted using those special holes and special heads for the screws. But for all intents and purposes, it's basically still a 120mm fan. There's nothing stopping you from using a different fan or using the Freezer 36 fans with a traditional wire clasp. You know, the ones we always see from other air coolers. Yung sa Deepcool Assassin 4 and Assassin 4S naman, although yes, they're proprietary din, but the way that they're mounted, they're not that prone to breakage kasi you're just slipping them in. Eto, talagang ika-clasp mo siyang ganun. And to remove that, tatanggalin mo rin yung clasp. That's sort of the biggest issue with this air cooler, basically. So, as I've said, as in terms of performance, it's really good. So, here are the charts from our testing compared with a Freezer 36 and an AK620. And as you can see, it goes toe-to-toe and even beats some of the coolers that we used for testing. We used a Core Ultra 9 for this test using Cinebench with multiple tests. And although the Core Ultra 9 is not the hottest CPU out there, we kind of wanted to use a high-powered CPU which has a lower chance of thermal throttling using air coolers. And ayun nga, performance-wise, it's very good. It didn't thermal throttle. The CPU was pegged at 100% and it cooled it very well. And yung very well na yun, as I've said before, it comes at a cost. And that cost is the fan noise. Again, it's one of those things where you're not looking for a lot other than performance. So it's very reminiscent of the Arctic Beetle Max fans. So although it has the better performance, it has the caveat of being noisy. But basically, you know, we don't really count that as a negative. As in our opinion, thermal performance always trumps noise performance. So another caveat is that because of the design of the cooler itself and the fans, it does interfere with the RAM. So if you're looking to use this particular air cooler, make sure that you have low profile RAM. So yung Dominator Platinum namin na we were going to use for this test, hindi talaga siya kasya. However, fortunately, we do have an S5 flare and that is a low profile RAM. And those fit with no problems. So it's all well and good. It has solid performance, solid build quality, a very interesting RGB implementation. However, yung number one na caveat niya is the price. We couldn't find an official SRP for this. However, looking at marketplaces, it basically averages around 5,000 pesos. So air coolers for 5,000 pesos, that's basically premium air coolers. So with the likes of the Assassin 4, some Noctua coolers, and basically yung mga top-end na Noctua na lang yung natitira na mas mahal dito sa air cooler na to. And as you've seen with our testing, the very humble and very solid Freezer 36 beats it. And yung Freezer 36, around 2,000 pesos lang yun. So, yun yung problem sa kanya. You're going to be dealing with, you know, some significant caveats, all for the name of performance. However, at the price point, it has a lot of stiff competition. So, and, you know, basically in conclusion, we do recommend this cooler. We were expecting it to fail with the Core Ultra 9. However, it performed really well. So, with the price and all of the caveats, you're basically looking to get this because you like the aesthetics, you like the uncompromising performance, and you basically want something unique. Yung mga air coolers, with the exception of some unique ones like the Assassin line from Deepcool, they've been very stagnant in terms of aesthetic design. But if you want a solid performing and unique looking air cooler, you can check out the ALSEYE W700 Pro. Thank you for watching.